Hey fellow cartographers, it's Josh with Map Effects, and today I want to show you how to use the new dungeon map builder available in the Map Effects shop to create a dungeon map like this for your next campaign. You can see there's all kinds of interesting features you can include. There's the walls themselves, but of course you have axes and bridges, wells and traps and thrones and sacks of grain and all kinds of stuff for you to play with and explore so that you can create a map for your story. Today I'm going to be working in Procreate, and I'm going to just kind of walk you through some of the basic process that I like to use to create a map just like this. So let's start mapping. So once you've downloaded your dungeon builder to your iPad, you can fire up Procreate, and I'm going to show you how you can start making your first map. So just come up here to Import and just navigate to wherever it is on your iPad that you've saved the dungeon builder, and you can click on this file that's labeled Border Templates, and let's just start with a standard 8.5 by 11. So once that imports, you can see that it automatically throws this default white background on it, but if we turn that off, you can see that the border itself is on has a transparent background. So this allows us to add in a paper texture below that. So what we're going to do is just come up here to this wrench icon, click Insert File, and just navigate again to wherever it is that you've saved your dungeon builder. And we're going to click on Textures and Paper. And I'm not sure why it's not showing a preview of the different paper textures, but let's just click this first one here. And you can see that it imported it, but it actually threw it above the border. So just open up your layer panel, click, or just hold down and drag that below the border so you can see both. So the first thing that I like to do is add the grid that we're going to align all the walls and stuff to. So to do that, we're going to come up here to our layer panel and create a new layer above our paper texture and below our border. And open up our brush panel, and you're just going to navigate to the folder that's marked brushes and patterns, and you can click on the clean grid. There's a weathered grid, there's a brick floor. Let's just go with the clean grid to start out with. We can actually change this up later, and all you want to do is just draw it on here real quick, and you have your grid. Now let's come up here and create another new layer above our grid layer, and we can start adding some walls. So there's two styles of walls that you can choose from. There's this rough block style, and then there's also this carved style. I'll zoom in so you can see a little bit better. So whatever suits your dungeon better, you can switch between those two. I think I'm going to go with the rough block for this example. And you'll find when you stamp it, it will always orient to whatever the default orientation is. So to get around this, there's a couple different ways you can do it. So one is you can stamp it wherever you want on the map, and then go up to your selection tool and draw around it. Then go up to the arrow, and then you can rotate it however you want. You can also flip it. And I find one setting that I like to change is I like to put this on bilinear. A lot of people will say that bicubic is the best one, but for whatever reason with these illustrations, I find that bilinear tends to work better, just because when you zoom in on this, if you rotate the brush, sometimes the bicubic, it'll blur the edges a little bit and won't look as crisp and sharp. So that's why I like to use this setting instead. So you can either do that, let's just undo this, or you can actually rotate the entire canvas and stamp it. So this would allow you to change the orientation just by rotating the canvas, which I find to be a little bit faster, but I do use both. So we have our first room on here, so then we can just come up here to the move tool, and you just want to line up these corners right on the grid, just like that. And then what I like to do is I'll create another layer above this I'm kind of creating temporary layers that just allow me some more flexibility in moving things around. So let's go down to the, oops, I went too far. The intersections, and let's just select this one here. Just stamp it wherever we want it, and then I like to line it up. And for this particular style of wall, you'll actually overlap these corner pieces just to make sure that everything lines up properly. Just like that. And then I'll just tap on this layer, merge it down. And you can add in a few things, but for this example, I'll just merge it down for now. So create another layer, and let's just add a short hallway section. And you might notice that I actually have, I have all these labeled. So there's 5 feet sections and 10-foot sections. So these ones are all 5 feet, so they're basically 1 square wide, assuming that these 1-inch squares are the equivalent of 5 feet. So it just kind of helps you to figure out which one that you need. And okay, yeah, I did create another layer. Stamp it, and just line it up. Okay. And if we want to, we can come over here and we'll add another intersection here. Let's go with this one. Okay. And you can keep expanding on this and adding some other rooms and such, but let's start adding in some different objects and room features. So we can just merge this down. I'm going to create another layer. You'll see that I create a lot of different layers, and it just helps me to have a little bit more control as I'm adding things in. And then let's come up to room elements. And there's a few different types of stairways. You can see again I have these labeled as 5-foot sections or 10-foot sections. So just pick whatever scale or size that you need based on the map that you're making. And since this is on its own layer, I can just stamp this wherever I want. I actually got pretty close, but I'll just move it. Just make sure that it's in place. And this will overlap with the wall a little bit. You really can't see it a whole lot, but just take your eraser tool, clean up those edges. It all depends on how much time you want to spend on this, but you can see it's pretty easy to add in a little bit of stairway. And I do have these stippled, which is just a shading technique so that you can more clearly see which direction the stairs are going. So now let's add a few items into our dungeon. So I can create another layer above the stairway, and let's go to weapons and armor, and we'll just pick this first suit of armor here. Again, I rotate the whole canvas so that it'll give me this particular orientation when I place it on the map. And you can see I actually placed this one just a little bit too high, so just take my selection tool, just move it down slightly. Just like that. And then let's go to the furniture, and let's just pick out this throne here. Oh, kind of missed. That's all right. We'll just move this. And actually, I think I want both of these suits of armor a little bit closer to the sides of this throne. Yeah, something like that. And then we can come in here and look through some of the different room elements that we can add in. You could potentially add in some columns or some doorways. And I'm thinking if this is kind of a small throne room in here, let's add a doorway, because you wouldn't want to just open to the hallway. So let's just select this 5-foot door here, and I'm just going to stamp it right there. Just shift it around a little bit. I think let's put it maybe not quite on this edge, but let's give it a little bit of breathing room. Just like that. And since you can see some of the line art is showing through these edges, I just switched to the wall layer. And I'm just going to erase that away a little bit. Okay. Now if we want, we can kind of dress up this room a little bit more. So I'm going to just create another layer. And let's add in this long table that we can put here in the corner and just shift it around however we'd like. And then we can also add in, merge that down, we can add in a chair that's sitting at the table. So again, you can stamp it, select, and then rotate it however you would like. And rather than having it straight on, we'll have it kind of more at an angle like this, as if somebody stood up out of the table. It just feels a little bit more genuine. And since this is overlapping with the table, just switch to your erase tool and just erase away anywhere the chair overlaps with the table. And then we can merge that down, create a layer, and let's go to our items. What can we add to this table itself? You can see there's rugs, there's mirrors that we can add to the room. There's all kinds of interesting things that you could potentially add in here. We could put this scroll right on the table. Remember, I created a layer for it. Just stamp it, and again, let's shift the angle of it a little bit, just so as if the person was sitting here looking at the scroll. And then I'll just switch back to my layer that has the table on it, and then just erase away any of the line work that is overlapping this, so you can see the scroll a little bit better. And then if you want, you can merge it down. And this is basically how you do it. You just kind of keep building up different layers like this. You can add in candles. We can add in some torches to this room. So that would be back here in the room elements section. We'll just scroll down. That's all the stairs, and there's bookshelves and trapdoors that you can add in here. But you can also do these wall torches. So if we wanted to, we could add in a torch there. Shift it a little bit. Let's put it about right there. We can also add, more torches and stuff in the hallways. Let's actually rotate this. Let's put it right there. So it's kind of casting light around this whole area. And then I mentioned earlier that we can actually change up the style of the floor. I just like to use the clean grid initially just to get everything all lined up. But then what you can do is, let's just turn the opacity of this down so we can just barely see it. You can create a new layer, go back to your brushes and patterns, and let's go with let's just go with this detailed brick floor. So you'll see that it all still lines up when we start drawing on it. Actually, this brush is a little too big, but you can pick up your brush and the pattern will not break. So you can just fill in all of this around your items. And you could actually use this floor initially as your grid and just then erase away anywhere it overlaps. It just depends on what technique you want to use, but you can see you can just really easily fill this all in. And then whatever your preference is, this might look a little bit too detailed for some of you with because the floor is drawing quite a bit of attention to it because it's so detailed. But one trick that I like to do is you can just come up here to the layer panel, and the simplest way is to just turn down the opacity of it. Let's turn off the clean grid. But you can turn down the opacity of it so that you still get the impression of the floor being there, but it's not demanding so much attention because the line art isn't black like it is for the walls. So we have a pretty good start to our little dungeon, but one other thing that a lot of people like to do is to add some type of a texture or hatching around the outside of these walls so that it's a little bit more clear that these are solid walls that are underground. So the way that I like to do that is I'll come up here and create a new layer. And there's a few different brushes that you can use here in the brushes and patterns folder again. There's your kind of more standard crosshatch brush, right? There's a curved hatching brush, which is similar but kind of has just a little bit more of a unique look to it. And then you also have some of these stipple brushes that you can use to kind of line the outside of your wall. And then the other thing that you can also do is there's this scattered rock brush, which you can actually use on the inside of your dungeon too, if you just want to put a little bit of rock texture or debris, make it look like the dungeon is kind of abandoned or a little bit more rough looking. So you can do that on the inside of your dungeon, but you can also add texture and stuff like that around the outside of your dungeon as well, whichever you prefer. So let's undo all this. So I have my new layer, and then let's go to our crosshatch brush, and all you have to do is just follow the outside of your dungeon. You can see this is significantly faster than having to draw all this cross-hatching by hand. Okay, something like that. And if you want to, you can kind of taper out the edges a little bit, depending on how rough you want it to look. You can fill this in a little bit more. You can also add patches of it, but just something like that. And then it's just a matter of cleaning this up a little bit, and since this is all on its own layer, you can just take your eraser brush and follow the wall and just erase away wherever the hatching kind of overlaps. Just clean it up a little bit. You'll find it doesn't need to be exactly perfect, but you can spend as much time on it as you would like. In this example, I'm going to try to do it pretty quickly though. Hopefully that gives you an idea of some of the features included in the Dungeon Map Builder and how you can use it to create a map for your next campaign. And if you want to pick up a copy, it's available right now in the Map Effects shop. It's obviously compatible with Procreate, but it also works in Photoshop, Clip Studio Paint, and Affinity Photo. So I look forward to seeing your map.